I've got loads of plastic travel boxes. I used to have my van all kitted out, so when we did outside displays, all the birds were accessible in their boxes, so a nice setup made to measure for my van. And I still use several, certainly 3 a day, taking birds to schools. We use them here, we use them there. They last forever. Now, once upon a time, you put your birds on a perch in the back of your car. I even know people that would just put them in the boot of their car and trap the leash in the boot lid so you could get them out in your saloon car. And then all of that seemed very silly. It didn't at the time. And more of us made wooden plywood travel boxes, nicely varnished, and they were good. And they were perfectly good unless you let them get wet, dirty, smelly. Basically, your husbandry was poor, and then mold could grow. And we realise it is one of the potential sources of mold-induced aspergillosis. It's a mold spore, a fungal spore, gets in the bird's lungs, eventually gets to their brains. A good bird that's recovered probably never fly fit again, and a lot of them will just die. And it's a mold. So we thought, gosh, and then clever people like Falcon Fabrication, they started manufacturing plastic hawk boxes. You can just hose them out, scrub them out, let them dry. There's nothing to go mouldy. Well, there's no wood to go mouldy as long as you keep them quite clean inside. And I still have years. They last forever. These well-made, professionally made plastic travel boxes. And I've got several from little tiny things for the size of a tiny owl or a merlin, right up to eagle-sized boxes. And at a later date, I've also bought boxes from John Corton, a very similar design. Now, what you get with these professionally made boxes, easy clean, mold-free, really, great ventilation, and baffled ventilation. So instead of just having holes or segments cut out to let air in, it's baffled on the inside, so light doesn't directly come in. And that means the American terminology, giant hood, it's dark in there. That keeps your birds really settled, really settled, but you're still getting good airflow. Now, I'm going to show you how to make 2 different styles of plastic travel box for, do you know what, if you just did it without trying, if you knew what you were doing, for a very tiny amount of your time and a very small amount of money. They won't be as good because we're going to do it DIY. We're not going to baffle those air holes, but there's tips and tricks of where you put the air holes that most birds will stay perfectly calm and they'll do their job. So have a look at this. I'm going to show you how to turn this IKEA laundry basket into a travel box for a small to medium small bird. So we're looking at barn owl, we're looking at certainly up to a Tearsall peregrine, male Harrishook, probably only if it's as small as old Henry the runt that I'm flying, a tiny male Harrishook. But for most things smaller than a male Harrishook, and your micro hawks and your micro falcons, this is going to work well. White is great, and a lot of the professional companies now make them white as a choice. Easier to see that it's clean inside, much more reflective of heat and sunlight. Black ones are a death trap. Even if you stupidly forget and you leave that black box in the sun, it's like a sealed car with your dog inside. Heat getting in, not escaping, cooking something alive in there. So never put these boxes in the sun. Never put your travel box in a car with all the windows up. No different to a child or a dog. It will heat up quicker because it's black. But these white ones are good. This white material is good. White boxes work really well. So I'm going to show you how to turn this really quickly into, I'm not joking, I can't remember what I paid for this. They're in IKEA. They are literally a few pounds. And I'd love to say I thought this idea out when I was in IKEA, and I do spend a lot of time if not in IKEA, but if I'm in IKEA, looking at stuff, because when you keep a lot of snakes and creepy crawlies, they do an awfully good range of plastic boxes. My rack system for my smaller snakes and my breeding small king snakes, the whole rack system is built out of some Wix's Conti board and a whole load of IKEA plastic storage boxes. They do some good stuff in there. I'm always looking. I'd like to say, I saw this and the little light bulb went off in my head. I know what I'm going to make out of that. But it's a complete lie. If you've watched my video of last winter out with my Spanish friends hawking and out with Rafa and his Perian, his American Kestrel crossed with a peregrine, or rather peregrine crossed with an American Kestrel. You can see, yes, this wasn't my idea. He's been using one of these for 15 years that he made himself. So all credits to Rafa. Maybe he stole that idea from somewhere else, I don't know. But I don't think he did. All credits to Rafa for enabling us, letting us show you how he made a travel box for his hybrid Falcon. 15 years of service. Let me show you what you're going to need. Well, first off, go to IKEA, get one of them. You don't need a tripod because you're not going to film yourself. You don't need a drink because you've had a cup of tea. I haven't. Oh, and you don't need a plaster. No offence, guys. Stanley knife. I shouldn't really be showing you anything to do with DIY. You're going to need a piece of perching material. Here's one we made earlier, cut to size. You're going to need something to put on the wood. This wood is too harsh. Any old AstroTurf, it's just to be softer and for the bird to grip the perch. You do not need proper AstroTurf in these circumstances for pressure sores and to fight off bumblefoot. This isn't a perch in the aviary. This is a temporary thing the bird's going to be moving around on. So even Koya, I can't remember what it's called. You could use something like a Koya mat, AstroTurf, anything it can't get tangled up in, can't get its talons in, gives it a bit of comfy grip. It does want that grip. Top tip, if you're worried about this bit of wood getting wet and mucky somehow, which technically could grow mould, which technically means what's the point of you having the plastic version and not a wooden box? Well, first off, the plastic boxes are much lighter. Secondly, this is treated, it can still go mouldy, but it's not going to be in a position to do so. But hey, don't worry about that, because you can just go to the plumber's merchant, to your DIY place, get some waste pipe tubing, put an end cap on either side and screw into that. Wrap it with this with some cable ties, or you could even glue it on or screw it on. We're going to wrap it with cable ties today. Top tip with cable ties, when you cut the finished cable tie off, cut it dead flush with the head of the cable tie, or you'll leave a very sharp, tiny edge. We're going to need a handle, we're going to need a drill, we're going to need a screwdriver. White cable ties on a white box is going to look nice. We're going to use 2 screws and 2 washers. You'll want 4, and I'll tell you about that later. And you're going to need cable tie removal, something to measure and that. So listen, you're going to need naff all, aren't you? You could do it with hand tools, no problem at all. Now at this stage, let me just tell you, you might think, oh, do you know what? I've got a female harrisawk. I was really hoping this video was going to give me a DIY opportunity to make her a box, but Dave, that thing's way too small. We're making 2 boxes in this video. We're going to show you how to make a small to medium, and we're going to show you something up to female goshawk, female harrisawk size. And the best bit of all, I'm not going to do any of that. We're going to do this one, and I'm going to tell you how to make. That one's going to cost you more. Probably going to cost you 50 quid. That's probably a third of the going rate of a female goshawk box. Stay tuned. Later in the video, I'm going to show you, without doing a darn thing, how to make a plastic travel box for your female harrisawk and that size bird. Okay, first thing we want to do is secure this lower part. We could secure it with a clip, but I'd rather secure it permanently. I'm just going to do that simply by putting a bigger drill bit in there. Use a sharp drill bit. Not that one. Oh, don't mate, I've got to go miles at Icarus Falconry to go and get tools. It's like a 50-minute walk. Let's try and cheat. Really? So here's what we're doing. We want to pass a cable tie with a bit of luck. I can't do it because you're watching me. I hope you get the idea. We just want to stop this flapping around, one either side, and then it should be nice and solid when we open the hinge. You could put one at the bottom. I'm going to cut this off with some snips. I'll show you in a minute, but if you're not careful, you can end up with a very sharp edge here. Razor sharp, brand new Stanley blade, take it off flush. You don't get that sharp edge. I'm not using one today. So back again. Let's see. Perfectly good. So here's what we've achieved. We've just tied that on there. Same on there. So now when we pull the front down, of course, it doesn't pull the front lower lip off. So next, we need to put a perch in. Use your saw your wood, because there you go, just like that. You've measured it to size. Now think about where you want to put it. Think about, or measure, when your bird is standing on a perch, how far down does its tail go? You do not want your bird's tail dragging on newspaper covered in poo, absolutely not. So you want it high enough to make sure the bird's tail clears the floor, but the higher you go, the less room you're going to leave for whatever size bird you've got. So go as low as you can. Equally, look at the style of this. It's not a square, upright, straight up and down. It kind of leans back and it gets slightly narrow as you go in. I've gone for 5 inches up from the base and 8 or 9 inches in from the front. And this might well be, for your bird, something you're going to need to modify. You might think, bugger, I need that perch to be a bit higher, a bit further forward so its tail doesn't forget the back there. But remember the vertical, his head's going to be higher and nearer the front. So that's where we've gone for. Anyway, whiteboard marker, use a pencil. I couldn't find one. So there's your holes. That means we can now work from the outside and we can kind of do this by eye. But first I'm going to wrap the perch in some kind of coating. And what I want to tell you guys is, this is just a little bit I found for a small bird. When you're using one screw, especially if the perch is round, but even on a square, over time it might come a little bit loose. You do not want any movement when that bird's travelling. This needs to be rigid. So if we'd have used a bit of 2B1, just tie it with 2 screws close to each other and it stops any movement. Far better. 1 screw for this because it's a tiny little thin bit, and it'll always get thicker when you add that covering material. Okay, so there we have it, all ready to go in. Don't worry if it's a well, a tiny bit, let's have a look, a tiny bit too small, a tiny bit, because the sides will pull in. Equally, if it's a tiny bit too big, they'll push out, but obviously we're talking maybe, you know, 4 or 5 mil. You don't want to go silly and make a balls up of it. This is cable tied on. You can bond it or screw it, whichever, depending on what you use there. Now, use a washer so your screw head or your screw heads don't pull through there. I'll be doing a lot of cuts on this, so I don't look a complete idiot, but I'm not going to be doing loads of takes. I think that's a tiny bit out of square. Just a little bit. Oh, it would bother me, but for the purposes of this, it is nice and tight, so that's fine. That's what we want, tight. So, bottom's held together. Perch is made and put in. There's 2 things we need now. Ventilation. It is ventilated, but we need a bit more airflow than that. And, well, maybe not so much for this, because you could carry it. To be honest, yeah, I don't even think it needs a handle. It doesn't, because it's the centre of gravity is at the top. So what I was going to show you, but I can think of another second thing. Let me show you. I'd usually use some rope, double the thickness of this. I was using this small rope because it's a small box and lightweight. This is how I know. I'm going to have to explain it best I can. Drill a couple of holes in the top of your travel box. Poke through one end of the rope. Knot it off. Squash it over with a lighter. Just a little bit. Just melt the end so it doesn't fray. So now you've got a knot here and a bit of rope. Up and over. Down through the next hole. Knot it off. So inside you've got 2 knots that stop the handle coming through. But to stop the handle falling down and the bobbles constantly being on your bird's head, pull the handle up tight, wrap a bit of cable tie around each side of the rope before it goes through the hole, pull them tight, and then it can't fall through. The cable ties will stop it. I really hope that makes sense, because in making this, I've realised the best way to carry this is going to be, without a doubt, from there. It makes perfect sense. Saves me doing the next job. So we have still got 2 more jobs. 1, aeration, ventilation. Okay. We're not going to baffle them. So a good travel box will have holes at the front lower edge, holes at the top here, but then a sheet of plastic welded in front to baffle the direct light. We want holes low down. Any holes higher up, the bird will be bouncing around. Seriously, it's going to want to get to the light. Usually if the holes are lower down and the light's just spread out on the floor, it doesn't make the bird so restless. Light coming in high, birds want to go up high. So we are going to put some ventilation in along here, and I'm probably going to put just a little bit along the back lower edge, but we're going to keep all of it down. Why front and back or side to side? Because we want air flowing through. But here's the thing, you're probably better off having light coming in the front than anywhere else, because it will keep the bird facing forward most likely. I think it's going to turn around to face the lightest part, I think. So we're going to go for front ventilation. I think too small. I think Goldilocks just right. It's a long day and the weeks are long. I'm not walking 100 metres to go and get a sharpened drill bit. So I'm going to go a little bit bigger. but less of them. When you make yours, measure out these holes so it doesn't do what this one's doing, going all over the place. At a funny angle because you're leaning forward. Measure them out equally, measure them up. Just looks better. Just do things as neat as you can. You've got a bit more time, it'll look better. Personally, that'll be better for this product, for this purpose, because once you get too big, I think some small birds will want to go down on the floor and peer out of there. Too small, you're going to make loads of holes. Possibly too big, but probably okay. Just right. I'm literally going to go a couple at the back to give airflow, quite substantial holes. They're probably 8 or 10 mil holes, and some at the front there. So we've got perch, ventilation, door, carry handle. It's so lightweight. I see people, they don't put anything in them and they just wash them out. Guys, put newspaper. I would put newspaper in the bottom of your boxes. You can just take everything out, maybe give it a quick wet wipe out, but newspaper catches all the filth. If your bird jumps on the floor and you don't put anything in the bottom of your plastic box, its feet and its feathers just end up dragging around in all the liquid poo. Newspaper absorbs it, honestly. That's my tip, that's what I'd do. So, Rafa just shuts his in his van, job done. We're going to do one more thing. And that one more thing is one more hole. It's fluted under here, so make sure you don't go straight into one of those little braces. One more hole. Make that hole to suit the thing you're going to get, which is just something we never like to use in falconry. A little dog clip, a little tiny carabiner, a little clip. Just clip it. We don't need a hasp. We don't need to bother with bolts. Just a hole and a little clip or a little carabiner. How simple is that? Because this is more than rigid. Nothing's going to come undone. So despite my DIY skills, we've got a plastic box for a few quid. We've used the drill. You're going to use 4 screws and maybe 4 washers so the screw heads don't pull through. A couple of cable ties. A bit of something. And a piece of wood or a piece of plastic waste pipe or plastic tubing. You can get glue on or push on end caps so you've got an end to screw through into. A couple of screws and it's there. And then the whole thing's plastic, no wood at all. But how ridiculous is this? A perfectly good travel box for, I say, definitely, yeah, male peregrine, barn owl, anything of that sort of small to small medium. You've got a box you can just carry away. I mean, it weighs nothing. How easy is that? And you know, you definitely don't put a handle on it, because I can tell you now, that is perfectly balanced. Take the label off, stick a sticker on it that says Hawk Box or something. Who's going to know? And the key is, from front to back, it has got that depth, which is so key because, like I say, look at the vertical. You need room at the front for the bird's head. They need to be able to lift their tails up and slice and poo, not dragging their tails in their poo. Quick hose out, perfectly done. So I've cut and cut some more of my faffing and my inadequacies, and you've stuck around through it all because now you want to know how to make the box that you came to this for. The box for your female harrishook, your female goshawk, your African spotted owl or something like that, a Bengal eagle owl, maybe bigger, your red-tailed hawk. So am I going to show you how to make one of those? No. Because a friend of mine living in Poland said, Dave, I hear you're going to do a box making video. I've already done one on my channel for bigger birds out of a plastic box you can buy and modify. And he said, just put that on there. Saves you doing it. And you know what? I've had a look. It does. This one's going to cost you a bit more. Like I say, probably about 50 quid. It's probably going to be easier, about the same. A real quick DIY project. So if I've managed this YouTube thing right, at the end of this video, there'll be a link. Click on it in the screen and go straight to this video making a larger plastic DIY hawk box. But if not, or as well, I'll put the link in the description. So you're getting two for the price of one. Bounce from here over to there. And if you like making stuff, because some people say, oh, I'd rather just spend another 100 quid. Just get one. That's how I've become out of necessity and time. But I like making things. I like DIY. I like fabricating stuff. And I'm sure a lot of you do too. And if you've got the time, make one. Have you made something even simpler and more cost effective on the same lines? If so, comment below. Just share the information, help each other. It distracts not at all from those people that make them, because most of us, to be honest, will go on, even if it's your first thing, you'll probably go on around a show, you'll be browsing the internet, you'll probably end up buying one anyway. And to be quite honest, most of those professional box makers, because they've thought up and come across such a great idea, to be honest, most of them, there's a waiting list because they're rammed with work, as they should be, because professionally made travel boxes are superb bits of kit that nowadays they will last you not just your bird's life, they'll last the rest of your life. Anyway, if you like a bit of DIY, click on this video now. Fingers crossed.